Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I have to say, I'm so sorry of the tech issues, but I have such an amazing guest for all of you. So I'm going to give everyone 30 seconds to come on in. And I'm so happy to have the one and only founder of Female Startup Club podcast and author of Your Hype Gal. Welcome to the Facebook group, Doone Roisin. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me,
Hi.
Gloria. I'm so excited to be here and to see everyone.
I'm so happy that you're here despite the technology challenges, which I'm sure you're well aware of, having have your own podcast for so many years.
Oh, story of my life, honestly. Sometimes my internet's like, you have 5 bars of internet. You're going to have a great call. And I get on the call and it's like, you have no internet. And I'm like, but why?
So why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? I mean, obviously you have interviewed over 250 of our most favorite direct-to-consumer brands, Glow Recipe, Parachute, all of the ones that we use every day. And so you really have a macro view of kind of what people did to go from 0 to a million, 100 million, 200 million. So why don't you give everyone kind of an intro about kind of what you do?
Yes. So Female Startup Club is something I started very humbly from my bedroom floor during the pandemic. And, it's since grown to what I like to call now a media company. We have the podcast, a newsletter, we have the book that's just come out, we have a private network of women who are building CPG brands. And in that time, I've interviewed around 300 founders of really exciting brands like the ones that you mentioned. And basically, I've been interviewing them to understand their blueprint, how they've built their business in e-commerce, why it works, what doesn't work, what they're doing now to grow, the money piece, how much things cost, all those kind of good things. And the key thing that stands out between every single founder is truly this one thing. It's a good product. If you have a good product, good enough that someone will tell their best friend or their mum or their friend at work and buy it a second time, that's it. Like, it's as simple as that. If you have a product that someone thinks, like it's fine, but like I wouldn't buy it again, you've lost. And so that's really something that stands out time and time again. A lot of women that I speak to actually say, rather than invest in more marketing and more paid media and all that kind of thing, they actually just invest more in product development, making it absolutely better, listening to their consumers, listening to their customers' feedback, listening to the negative feedback, iterating, making their product better. And then that's kind of what makes them succeed, because then they have word of mouth inherently built in and people talk about their brand.
Now that takes a lot of many things. It takes eating a lot of humble pie to actually like listen to your customers and not just be like, I'm just going to make it better and better, better, but be like, what's going on? A second thing is a radical trust in the universe. So I know a lot of people who are listening now, they see, like the founder of these multi-million-dollar brands, and you've interviewed all of them when they started from nothing. They might say, well, I didn't have those relationships, or I'm not a part of the cool kids club, or I don't know Gwyneth Paltrow. So can you tell me, like, how much do relationships matter? And how much does that like backing from like someone that's like a fancy VC fund matter for you, the future of the company?
Okay, well, that's definitely two different things. The first
Yeah.
part of like how much do relationships matter? Relationships are everything, but you don't need to have relationships when you're starting. You can be someone, and I've heard this time and time again on the show, you absolutely have to have, you can have no network, you can have zero, but it is so important to get out there and to meet people in your industry, meet other founders, connect with people at events, go on LinkedIn, like whatever it might be, because at the end of the day, building a business is all about relationships. It's all about whether you're building a relationship with your customer, whether you're building a relationship with an influencer to create a partnership, whether you're building a relationship with a wholesaler so that you can get stocked in that store, with the buyer, whatever it might be. It's all relationships. So networking is super important, but so many women I have had zero connections, zero contacts, zero anything. They've had no founders in their network that are friends, building something. They've really figured it out themselves, but just put themselves out there, whether that's online, socially, whether it's in real life at events, all that kind of thing. So relationships are super important, and building that kind of like surrounding, cheerleader team. And there are obviously so many different communities like what you're building and like what I'm building in my private network, where you can go and kind of get that inbuilt support from cheerleaders all over the world. And then the second part, yes, I think if you're going down the route of getting the, credibility, stamp of approval of some fancy VC, amazing, good for you. But like, there's definitely so many different paths, and you don't have to have that to succeed. And yes, we see that here and there, but like it depends on what path you want to take. A lot of brands want to bootstrap, they don't want to go down that pathway at all. And it really just depends on what you're trying to like aim for and what blueprint you follow.
So, I mean, so many things here. I could take notes on everything you said. And for those who are listening, please, please, please check out her book that just launched. I put the link here. And she also has
Oh
a
my God, I have a
podcast.
copy here.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay! So I know you have some of these lessons in your book as well. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about the book and kind of why people should read it if they're launching a product or maybe they've already launched a product?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is definitely geared to current entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, and people who just, want to know the stories behind the brands that they buy and they use and they love. It's a book for everyone. You can open it up anywhere in the book. It's not a cover to cover style book. If you've read Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, it's that kind of book. But basically we drill into like a bit of the founder story, a bit of the kind of background context, and then we just pick out 5 or 6 key insights that we talked through on the show. And so whether that is around networking, or whether that is around VC, or whether that is around whatever the topic might be, we kind of go through and we just pull out certain things. So like, for example, if I just flip over to any page here, this one is talking, the takeaway here is about creating a brand that connects to new audiences and, finding new audiences, being like, okay, well, I'm going to invest in TikTok. I'm going to spend my time building a community there. And, I've got 0 followers, but I'm going to create and connect with a new audience there, or whatever it might be. And there are so many lessons throughout the book. We have 51 women who are included. It's pretty big.
That's awesome. So I know you said about 0 followers because I'm all about helping the underdog because I never had any connections starting out. And I still don't really have any connections, not in this like PR world. And you're saying it's completely possible. So can you give us an example of someone who completely was bootstrapping, like the people who are listening now, and they're now a founder of a brand that we all know?
Yeah, I mean, so who's an example? A really good example of someone who had no industry connections and had like a wild story is a woman called May Baheim. She is from Australia. She has a brand called Bread Beauty Supply, and it's basically hair care for curly hair. And she was one of the first Black-owned businesses in the hair care space to launch into Sephora in 2020, and she's had great success. But she knew like kind of no one. Yes, she came from a background of like working in beauty, but she actually had no contacts that were relevant for her. So she wasn't able to kind of like, get a contact here and get an introduction there kind of thing. But what she did was I'm so sorry. There's like an echo and it's like playing back into my mind. Can you hear
let me
it?
press.
Oh yeah, there we go. It's gone. So basically she had this idea where she really wanted to launch directly into Sephora. That was her whole goal, but she didn't know anyone there, and she didn't know anyone who knew anyone there. So she figured out that there was this conference happening in LA. She's based in Australia at this time. She knows that there are VP, like executives from Sephora, who are going to be speaking on a panel there. And she's like, well, if I just go to that conference and get like in front of someone for 5 minutes and just see if they could connect me to the right person, maybe that can get me in the door. And I love this story because she hustles. She takes the flight. She goes there. She figures out like who she's meant to talk to, and basically just like sees one day that person's going to the bathroom, waits outside the bathroom and is like, hey, like I just listened to your speech. Like, I'm just looking for some advice. She's not asking for a connection. She's not asking for anything like that. But she's like, I'm building a brand. My ultimate goal would be stocked into Sephora. What would I need to do? What does that look like? And the woman was just like, I'm happy to connect you. Like, you're in town. Like, do you have a deck? And she was like, yeah, I've got a deck. She doesn't have a deck. She goes home to her hotel, writes this like deck in, the next couple of hours, shoots it through, and that woman forwards it onto the buyer. But while she's doing this, she thinks to herself, okay, the office of Sephora is in San Fran and she's in like LA or something like that. She's like, I'm just going to book a flight to San Fran, because if I can be like, oh, I'm in town, maybe they'll be like, well, let's have a meeting. So she just kind of like follows her intuition. She goes to San Fran, and literally the buyer's like, oh, can you meet at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning? And she's like, yep, yes, I can. They meet at 10 a.m. Fast forward, they launch into Sephora is basically the story. She knew no one. She just like really hustled to find the right people that she needed to speak to and follow those breadcrumbs to getting to where she needed to get to. Ultimately, at the end of the day, she had a great product. She had a great story. All of that, played into it. But yeah, that's an example of someone who had zero connections and figured it out.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. I think we all need to,
Yeah.
to remind ourselves that like it just takes like hustle, persistence, and giving value. So on the topic of persistence, I had some people ask me how you started your podcast. They think you have a huge team. They think you have a whole team behind you doing the book, doing the podcast, and it must be easy for you. Can you talk about how you built your podcast and community from nothing, from starting out from scratch?
Yes. So as I said, I built it from my bedroom floor. I at first was recording the episodes on my phone, like in real life, like these 10 to 12 minute 10 to 15 minute conversations. And then I think I bought a microphone that was like $150 or $170 or something like that. And basically my distribution plan to get started was just to like constantly talk about it on social media at all times. Yes, I had a small following, but like not necessarily my target audience or anything like that, more just like people who I'd already connected with over the years, but like was starting essentially from building this new thing from scratch and building Female Startup Club's audience from scratch. And so my distribution plan was literally just find women who already have a built-in platform. They already have a following on their branded accounts and their personal accounts. And that will be my distribution plan. I'll interview them, they'll share it to their channels, and that's how we'll grow. And to this day, that's still how we grow. Until the book, we haven't done any paid marketing. We haven't done any marketing initiatives. It's literally just been through other women, and now 300 posting it to their channels. And yes, over time, we started realizing that I would interview my listeners and I'd be like, so how did you find us? How did you find the show? Time and time again, people kept saying to me, oh, I found you on a Google search, or I found you like as a recommended podcast in the podcast app. And I was like, well, if that's how people are finding me, I should totally lean into that. And at that time, I wasn't posting my transcripts or anything like that online, but I was like, well, that's an easy way to get SEO like juices flowing. And I was stalling and I wasn't posting them because I didn't have time to craft the kind of like copy of my transcripts to be perfect or anything like that. And I had a VA, and I still have a VA, but I wasn't able to get her to do it. And I was just kind of like, oh, I'm stalling. I'm not going to do that. And then someone gave me a piece of advice, a really successful podcaster, and he's like, doesn't need to be perfect. Just post it as is. Don't change anything. If you want to change something, maybe change the first paragraph so that the name and the brand name are correct, and don't touch anything else. And I was like, okay. So we spent a month backdating at the time it was when we were at 200 episodes. We backdated 200 episodes, and immediately my growth changed from like here to like here. And I was like, wow, yeah. So, within, I think it was in like 1 to 2 months, we started to seeing like a shift in traffic coming from that as well. So again, another free kind of way to build your show. You can obviously like do distribution through the guests that you have on the show who already have inbuilt audiences. And secondly, your SEO, which is another free channel. But then obviously, and the most clear one is posting on social media for yourself. Now I dedicate so much time to social media. I'm on TikTok every single day. I post 1 to 3 times a day. It takes me about 2 hours. I am posting on Instagram. It's me showing up and creating this content. It takes so much time, but it works.
I see you, girl. You're like doing all kinds of videos.
I'm on the grind.
Yeah, you're always, I love the kind of your signature, which is your pink sweatshirt with your podcast on it. And then you're kind of talking about how this founder went from 0 to 1 million, or this founder. And I'm just looking at your website. You've interviewed like Lashify founder, like the Greta, whatever her name is. I'm always seeing her on Facebook, Low Recipe Parish. It's incredible. So,
thank you.
So does anyone have any questions? Please, this is your time. We have a few minutes left, and I really want you to do 2 things. I want you to follow Doone Roisin on all the places, right? So at Female Startup Club, I want you to celebrate the fact that she's launched this amazing book from elevating the stories of other people, right? I mean, that's how you build communities. It's not about me. It's using your platform. And even if it's just one person, and that's how I've been able to build my platform as well. And so that's why I really love your message, because I always say that I'm your unofficial hype woman and you're everyone's hype gal. So it's absolutely perfect. So does anyone have any questions for Doone while she is on here? Now, remember, she has a top 10 podcast. I'm talking like in the same top 10 as a Gary Vee, right? And she started this in her bedroom with like an Amazon mic. So if she can do it, so can you. So
And by the way, I record right here. Like this is my setting where I record. I don't have a fancy studio. I don't have anything. I upgraded my microphone to this. It cost me maybe like $300 or $400, and that's it. And like a ring light.
that's
I don't
it,
have
girl.
anything else. Like I don't have fancy equipment or a fancy studio. It's just done right here on this chair.
With
This is
all
where the magic happens.
yes, but with the best intention, right? Which is just to give. So somebody says, "Are you posting clips from your show, or just talking content from your show? I can't devote that much time to Canva headline, or it's not my thing."
Yeah, I mean, we take clips from the show. I also create my own TikTok videos, so I go back through and I create these like mini stories, and I spend a lot of time doing that. And we post a lot of content. I publish 5 times a week on the show, and that's like my solo episodes plus 2 guest episodes that are split into 2 parts. So we're like really like in that content machine, and like I have my audio editor who edits the actual podcast. But I do think the reality of this kind of thing is like that content is important. You do need to be putting out there like the snippets from the podcast, or like going back through and like pulling out the key learnings. And if you can type it down like as a caption, great, or turn it into a little mini carousel on Instagram where people can flip through and get like the 3 top learnings that you got out of that episode or something like that. But you do need to create the content following off the podcast.
Sorry, you said 5. So do you publish twice a week or once a week?
On the podcast?
Yeah, the episodes.
5, Monday to Friday.
Okay, so you have 2 episodes per week, and then on social media, you post every day?
Yeah, so the podcast, we have like 2 guest interviews that are split into 2 parts. So it's like one interview is Monday and Tuesday, the next one is Wednesday, Thursday, and then my solo episode is on Friday. Then basically that triggers like a flow of events that gets like cut up into different kinds of content. So like I create 1 to 3 videos on TikTok. Then I repost those onto Reels. I don't create separate Reels for that. Then some of that goes across to the branded account. And then we have like loads of different templates for, X tips from this founder, or this quote file from this founder, or this reel that's taken from the show and like put into our branded Instagram account. It's a lot of content.
And look, there's like, I'm not doing this with mine either. Like I just do 1 episode a week, and I post maybe 3 times a week on social media. So it's not like, for people who are listening, like don't get intimidated or overwhelmed. Like you don't need to start off this way. Like how many episodes have you had already?
Yeah, so we're at 300 episodes now. And what I would say is that I chose to do like quantity over quality. I was like, I am just going to create bulk content. I'm going to put it out all the time at all hours. And that was my strategy because that could work for me. And that's what I'm spending my full time doing. If you're someone who's like working full time and you're doing your podcast on the side, I think what's clear is to audit yourself and figure out how much time you have. Set yourself a goal. Be like, okay, I want to post 3 times a week. And then on a Saturday or a Sunday, create those 3 videos so they're totally out of the way. Schedule them into a scheduler like later.com and literally just have them kind of like running automatically like that. But just kind of like audit how much time you can spend and stick to that goal. Like give yourself a bit of a strategy and then stick to it. Because most of this is like consistency. If you post once and then you don't show up again for 3 weeks, like people can't like become familiar with your content. Whereas if you're like, I'm just going to post once a week or 3 times a week or whatever it is on Instagram or TikTok or whatever channel that you choose as your primary channel, just stick to that. Build it into like your week. Build the flow into your week.
Yeah, and I will say consistency on fewer platforms is better than like frenetic randomness on all the platforms. So for me, like I don't do TikTok, I don't do Twitter, I don't do YouTube. I just focus on Instagram, my Facebook group, and my podcast for now, right? That's what I'm doing. Not to say that in the future, but I don't like this like posting on 10 different things and Pinterest. I just don't have bandwidth for that. So I've chose like 3 platforms and I'm sticking with it. So that brings me to my next question. Lisa, how are you, Lisa? She's a member of our PR Starter Pack. She says, do you recommend those starting out to batch create content for social, or do it more like you do organically each day?
Again, this depends on what your day looks like and how you personally prefer to work, because there's no right answer. I used to try and batch things, but then I just found like I didn't like that style. But I can absolutely see like, on a Monday morning, you carve out 2 hours and you like get as much done as you can. For me, I'm just someone who's kind of like always on and just like knows that every day, Monday to Friday, I create content. And it's just about finding like the rhythm that works for you and trying the batch content. If it doesn't work, going to like daily content and doing things on the fly. I'm much more of a like less kind of organized person, and I just do things on the go.
How many people are on your team? Someone asked. It sounds like a lot for a one-man production or one-woman production.
So I'm the only full-time person that works on the company, but I have my podcast editor who does all of our audio and like video snippets. He like creates the YouTube content and the snippets that then go on social media. I have my VA. She schedules absolutely everything. And then I have my content gal, Josephine, who just schedules everything on Instagram.
So I know that your podcast is very product focused, but what if someone is a public speaker and a coach? How can they leverage the media or podcast to get themselves out there?
So if you want to get yourself out there, it's just about getting yourself booked on shows. I would create my like dream hit list of 100 shows. I would put their name, contact email, the show in a spreadsheet, and I would just start chipping away. So I would follow everyone on LinkedIn. I would follow everyone on Instagram. I would start consuming their content. I would start listening to the show. I can't tell you how many times people pitch my podcast and they've obviously never listened to the show, whether it's like a guy who's like obviously just sending out like automated template emails, or whether it's someone who's totally not in e-commerce, which I focus specifically on e-commerce and CPG founders. So like actually get to understand the host, what they talk about, what the show is like, and then craft your pitch. Make it personal. Don't send a standard template kind of pitch, like get the name right, all that kind of like basic stuff. And then I would just start working my way through that list, reach out, connect, try to understand who they look for in a show, like why you would bring value to that show. And then just slowly, like, again, build those relationships. You need to build the relationships with the podcast host or the team that manages their inbounds and work through the list and follow up.
That's awesome. It's all in the follow-ups, y'all. So I put in a link where you can download a template where you can try to see if you think you're a good fit for Doone, then, and remember, she gets a lot of pitches, right? How many pitches do you think you've gotten?
Hundreds. I get so many. I get so many pitches. Now we have like an application form. So I try to clear the inbox and don't kind of like respond to pitches that way because we get too many. But I have like I just set up a simple URL, like connected to my website. My website's all on Wix. It's really simple, straightforward. We built it ourselves. And you just like fill out like where you're at in the journey. And we specifically say we look for e-commerce founders who are actively building CPG brands, direct to consumer brands, and who are doing kind of like high 7 figures to 8 figures of annual recurring revenue and are a few years into the journey, who are happy to speak about money, the marketing strategies used to grow, and like your challenges and things like that. And like that's our like sweet spot. And so people who apply and fit that, then we like reach out and start the kind of like back and forth.
Yeah. So first of all is do your research. Okay. Like like I have people who, and I just started my podcast, who are pitching me for things that are completely irrelevant. So please, if you want some help pitching, I got you. You can download this podcast pitch, try to like subscribe, rate, review her podcast. And then if you think you're a good fit, pitch. But the worst is when people are pitch you, they don't even read, they don't even listen, they don't even subscribe. It's just all about them. And it's like, I'm not your marketing tool, you know? So we have another question is, are you working with sponsors? And if so, how do you do that?
Yes, I am working with sponsors. So there's two like camps out there. One camp is, and I think Tim Ferriss is someone that says this, he's like, build your audience first, like wait until you've got, you know, so many downloads and then go out and pitch. But I was like, well, I need to have a sponsor so I can hire an editor so I can do the scale that I wanted. And why not just start now? So I started pitching from not day one, but like early on in the journey. I think it was like 4 episodes were up, like minimal downloads, that kind of thing. I literally just like wrote a kind of list of, I think it was like 10 sponsors that would be ideal for what I was trying to do. I wrote an email that was like, here is my vision. Here's who I'm targeting. Here's what Female Startup Club is going to become. Like, get in early, like, let's work together. I'd love to learn more about what you look for in a sponsor and a partner and like who you're looking to work with. And one of my dream sponsors said yes. They're still a sponsor 2 years in. And now I get a lot of inbounds, but they're not necessarily the right fit. So I would say I say 90% no to a lot of brands about sponsoring the show because it's not the right fit for the audience, or it's not like the right fit for each other, like that kind of thing. And now I'm trying to kind of switch to do more of an outbound strategy for the specific companies that I think would be really good to work with. And I'm also starting to work with certain, like, I don't know what the official word is, but like they're like revenue partners. So they go out and find the deals for you and bring it to you. And then you just say yes or no. And then you start working on that. And they take a commission of like 20%.
So at what point do you start working with sponsors? Like how many downloads do you think?
I've like recommended people to just like, even before you even launch your podcast, go out and be like, hey, I'm recording season 1. It's going to be 10 episodes. It's targeting this. This is how I'm going to market. This is my marketing plan. This is my marketing strategy. This is how I'm going to reach this audience. And put the value for them too. You know, like if you could work out like the lifetime value of them getting one customer, like for example, I'm working with a partner at the moment, and I think to work with them, it's like an immigration company who helps founders specifically immigrate to the US on the O1 visa. And I think to work with them, it's like $12,000. So if they get one client, that's amazing. But then the lifetime value is actually so much more, because then that founder brings on their team. Then that founder tells, you know, their friends, or like needs to bring their family. So actually 12,000 is the minimum, but the most they could earn is a lot. So for them, even to get one lead or one like customer from working on a podcast like mine and doing ads through us is significant. And like, that's a really great return on investment. So if you can kind of figure out some numbers of what it would take like to get them a client, or, you know, what it looks like if you even converted 1% of your audience and like worked out like a bit of a lifetime value of that customer and show them the numbers on that side, that also really helps.
I love that too. And it's always that kind of long-term strategy. So that's what I always teach. Like it's all about a value-driven conversation. So whether it's the CPR method or whatever, you know, what isn't it for them? Right. And I think that's what founders need to understand is worry about building your audience. It doesn't matter if you have 5, 10 people. If you can't serve those 5, 10 people, you're not going to be able to serve 5 million people. Right.
Totally. And just one more thing that I would also say, and this has kind of got to do with like when you're early launching, but in addition to like sponsors and partners, something else that I was actively doing in the beginning was looking for distribution partners. And what I mean by that is like someone who already has an inbuilt audience, like in a newsletter, or someone who it's a brand and they have like their kind of social media following that's really huge, and being like, hey, let's become partners. You can provide like this amazing content that's relevant for your audience for free. And in return, you promote us and kind of like cross promote each other and grow with each other, but you're also reaching this new audience. So by looking for those kind of distribution partners, yes, there isn't money involved, but they still help you grow.
100%. I love that so much. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're going to be coming to New York. You had such a successful book party. So do you have anything else to say to our audience? I'm going to put the link here so people can get all the juicy tips and stories from your book.
I would love to meet you if you're in New York. Come to the book party. It's going to be on the 10th of March, which is a Thursday. I think it's next Thursday. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to slide into my DMs. I love to chat. I'm like less of a phone person and more of a like in the DMs answering questions. So happy to share anything that you might need to know. I have a simple blueprint for my podcast on my LinkedIn, which is my name. You can search it, you'll find it. And yeah, would love to connect.
Yay, congratulations on all of your success. And for those who want to learn a little bit more about Doone, she's also on episode 22 of my podcast, where this was, you know, she goes even more in depth about what we talked about with the book launch and the podcast and kind of all the questions. So definitely check that out. And if you're in New York, follow her on Instagram now to see how you can get the details to actually meet her in real life. Yay!
Yes, I would love to meet you. Thank you so much for having me, Gloria. This is fun.
Thank you so much. And again, congrats on this book. And I can't wait to have you back in the community.
Yay, me too. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Oh, that was fun.